In a year, the man acquired the secret demon soul. He learned it about a skill from the cult leader of that time. For Steps of the Wind God, though it has only 4 moves, is considered the top lightness skill in the world. Legend has it that this skill was once a supporting technique for the demon leader, but was lost under one leader's watch. And since then no one has mastered it. And the one who acquired the 4 Steps of the Wind God then. This was during the mountain sealing era under the leaders Ubai Dao. To this day, the man clearly remembers what Ubai Dao said to him after drinking. It's thanks to finding the long-lost 4 Steps of the Wind God in the Demon Heaven Library that I was able to become the leader. The man was puzzled at the time. Since the 4 Steps of the Wind God were in the library, why was it said to be lost? Ubai Dao said with a meaningful tone. Because it wasn't on the shelf, but was used as the support for the 19th shelf. We are back in the present moment. The man strolls among the bookshelves, eagerly inhaling the ancient scent of books. The Demon Heaven Library is the largest he's ever seen. 99 massive bookshelves fill the library. It holds a vast array of martial arts manuals. Among them are legendary martial skills that captivate. These are treasured legacies amassed by the sect through generations. Even just browsing the titles would take more than a week. He stopped abruptly in front of the 19th bookshelf. He used his internal power to easily lift the bookshelf. He pulled out the book from underneath. On the cover, the bold title read, For Steps of the Wind God. Here it is, just as expected. He cautiously opened the first page of the manual. Before the official instructions, a line of neatly penned words fired up his spirit. In a vast world, 4 steps suffice. Exactly. This is what every man dreams of. As a top martial art chasing global supremacy, it must exude unparalleled dominance. The Wind God's 4 steps consist of 4 techniques. They are Shadow, Elimination, Hades, and Fast Steps. The first step, Shadow Step, a method of stealth and invisibility, serves as an introduction to the craft, can evade the watch of a single observer, attain ultimate mastery, seize the enemy general even amidst thousands, achieve unparalleled mastery, disappear instantly even before dozens. Step 2, Extinction Step, techniques of nimble evasion, for evading inevitable blows, find hope in fatal scenarios. Step 3, Reaper Step, strike and pursue technique. When this step is unleashed, all defenses and dodges are rendered useless. Pairs with the Elimination Step for attack and defense. Work in harmony. The final step, Swift Step, supreme speed technique. The faster you move, the world feels smaller. Mastering this skill can break human limits. Reach the realm of crossing 1,000 miles in a flash. In the following days, he focused on mastering this technique. 7 days later, the man left the Demon Heaven Library and went to the Demon Heaven Hall. He gave a respectful bow to his father. His father remained silent, only watching him quietly. After a moment, he spoke slowly. What skills did you learn at the Demon Library? He didn't hide anything. I learned a Lightfoot skill, he admitted. The 4 Steps of the Wind God. As soon as he finished speaking, the hall fell silent. The next moment, a burst of dark energy surged from Demon Heaven, threatening to engulf the entire hall. Quit with the nonsense. Father's voice held a trace of anger, but the man kept his determined look. It's absolutely true. I wouldn't dare deceive you on this. In that moment, Father's gaze was like a beast from the abyss, as if ready to swallow the man whole. But soon, Father calmed down. He said with unquestionable certainty, Let's see your martial arts skills. He was still skeptical that the man had learned the 4 Steps of the Wind God, but the man showed no signs of backing down. So as a trade-off, what do you plan to offer me in return? Father looked completely astonished. Throughout his long life, no one had ever dared to set terms with him. In the end, he just murmured, I'll let you live. Hearing this, the man fell silent. He gently closed his eyes. A wave of white energy emanated from him. In an instant, he moved through the grand hall like a ghost. He performed the Shadow Step, the first of the Wind God's 4 steps. In a flash, his father shot to his feet. It was only the first step, and he felt its extraordinary power. The man had just demonstrated the ancient 4 steps of the Wind God. It had made his stoic father show shock. Recognize the power of the 4 steps of the Wind God. It was the first time even his father had seen it. So, his father, slightly incredulous, asked, Where did you learn the 4 steps of the Wind God? Demon Heaven Library. The man's reply was clear and concise. Before he could finish speaking, his father suddenly appeared right in front of him. A bone-chilling cold emanated from his father. This felt completely different from the earlier demonic aura. It seemed like it would crush him any moment. How dare you deceive me? The Demon Heaven Library doesn't have the 4 steps of the Wind God. The man met his father's gaze without flinching. But I really did learn it there. Father angrily called it nonsense. However, the man kept arguing his case. Can you be sure you've read all the manuals in the library? Maybe it's not on the shelf. It was placed somewhere else. Hearing this, the father pressed on. So you knew the 4 steps of the Wind God were in the library? The man did not confess. Clearly, the father didn't buy it. I honestly didn't know. I wanted to learn a different martial art. I just stumbled upon it. The man had to keep lying. He couldn't explain. Of course, he knew his father wouldn't believe him. It was used as a footrest under the bookshelf. I noticed the bookshelf was crooked and decided to fix it. That's how I found it. The father seemed to be assessing the truth in his words. He gave him a long, thoughtful look. Then he turned and went back on stage. Recite the mantra for me. When he heard it, the man was not surprised. He knew his father would do it for sure. His goal wasn't to defeat his father and take over, nor did he want to repeat past mistakes. Revenge was just the reason he came back. But he came back to live a better life. So, telling his father the 4 steps of the wind god was not a big deal. To him, it didn't mean much at all. Of course, he wouldn't share it for free. He refused his father's request. But to avoid his father's anger, he hastily added, "There's no such thing as a free lunch." His father gave him a skeptical smile. "I remember at the hunting grounds, the techniques I taught you weren't free. That was for your drinks at the hunting grounds," said the man shamelessly. His father was taken aback by his shamelessness. Shakes his head in resignation. "How did I not see it before? You're unbelievably shameless." The man stood tall, defiantly meeting his father's gaze. "I've swallowed my pride all these years, just to make it here today. Go on. What do you want? Trade your martial arts manual with mine. That's fair. I initially wanted to master the Jiu demon technique, but I doubt you'd consent to that. So I'll compromise. Please teach me the Heaven Evil protective skill." The hall fell silent once more at these words. Demon Heaven's protective art, as the name implies, is a mystical protective art, an exclusive art that only Demon Heaven and his heirs can master. Father refused outright without a second thought. "I'm offering you the 4 steps of the wind god in exchange. To be honest, I'm the one getting the short end of the stick. Plus, you could teach it to me on the side. After all, the Heaven Evil protective skill isn't detectable. No one else would notice." He could sense his father's hesitation. If his father were really angry and pushed him, he'd eventually give in. But his father never did. After all, his father is still his father. To him, the Heaven Evil protective skill is essential. Mastering this protective skill is like having another life. "Let me think about it. I'll get back to you later." The man bowed respectfully. Then he turned to leave. But just then, he heard his father's voice behind him. "But first, I need to master the 4 steps of the wind god." The man felt a flicker of joy. Looks like father will teach him the devil's shield technique. He agreed without hesitation. Father gave him a knowing smile. "Aren't you worried that once I master the wind god's steps, I'll renege on the deal?" The man smirked. "I trust you wouldn't tarnish your image like that." Father's lips twitched. He chose his words to play on father's pride. It's just to make father wary of taking action. Of course, father sees through his intentions. Luckily, father didn't react strongly. Rather than foolishly surrendering the martial arts manual, father likely appreciates his way of securing advantages. "Great. Go ahead," say the mnemonic. So the man recited the 4 steps of the wind god word for word to father. Father closed his eyes. He silently pondered the intricacies of the mnemonic. 3 hours later, father started practicing the 4 steps of the wind god. The man watched his father intently. He didn't dare miss a single detail. The 4 steps of the wind god father's practiced were just like his previous practice, yet distinct, as if to show, "This is how I interpret this martial art." He memorized every move his father made. He did not intend to secretly learn the martial arts. Instead, he aimed to observe the differences between himself and his father, to grasp a higher level of martial arts. After practice, his father was deep in thought. He continuously compared the subtle differences with his father in his mind. Time passed without notice. At last, his father opened his eyes. What an exquisite mastery of agility. Hearing exquisite from his father was rare. It was already high praise. "You're not going to break your promise now, are you?" Father snorted dismissively. But this time his eyes held a trace of a smile. The man altered the future's course. "I wonder if father, now skilled in the wind gods for steps, can overcome Huo Wuji. Naturally, he will personally kill Huo Wuji. Teaching father the wind gods for steps is a wise precaution. Father honors his promises." He started teaching him the demon heaven shield. "I'm only saying this once. Focus and remember." He sat cross-legged in stillness. He held his breath, concentrating. He knew his father was true to his word. He had to master this supreme skill fast. He started channeling his energy, blending it into his body. Only a master like him could manage this. It's simply impossible. However, the Heaven Evil protective skill is hard to comprehend. It's extremely difficult to master. Several times I nearly lost control. Luckily, everything turned out fine. The man exhaled deeply. He smiled at his father's retreating figure. "Dad, we have another secret now. This thrills me more than mastering the Heaven Evil skill. But Dad doesn't seem to like secrets." He frowned slightly. A moment later, he snapped his fingers. He smacked the man's forehead, and he gave the man a serious look. Looks like you're asking for trouble again. Soon the man returned to the room. When Leon noticed the bruise on his forehead, he was furious. Which idiot did this? How dare they touch the young master? Father did it. Are you planning to avenge me? Hearing that Demon Heaven acted personally, Leon's confidence faltered instantly. She took a step back, lowered her head, and said, I'm a guard, not an assassin. Anyway, I can't beat him. Seeing her earnest look, the man couldn't help but laugh. Once upon a time, he wouldn't even joke about this. But now, everything's changing. The man gave Leon a serious look. I'll find a way to cure your petrification. Trust me. Someday, I'll find the answer. When she heard him say this, Leon trembled slightly. She couldn't understand why he told her this. Yet deep inside, she felt an overwhelming warmth. Just then, the man's face suddenly grew serious. But from this moment, you're fired. In a flash, Leon jumped to her feet. She stared at him, astonished. Are you really serious? Her eyes pleaded desperately. It was like she'd lost her most cherished possession. Seeing her forlorn expression, he quickly explained, I have no intention of cutting ties with you. You're still a part of my team. Leon exhaled deeply with relief. Yet, her face was still etched with worry. Starting now, I will name you the captain of the Ghost Shadow Squad. Leon stood there stunned. It was as if he had heard something unbelievable. The Demon Heaven cult has never had a Ghost Shadow Squad. The man gave a faint smile. That's right, so I'm going to create it. It will be my personal squad. Leon was even more bewildered. You want me to lead an non-existent squad? The man remained silent. Once again he spoke solemnly. Leon, would you become the leader of the Ghost Shadow Squad for me? Their gazes met. Leon's eyes were filled with uncertainty and hesitation. But when she heard from me, from that moment her answer was clear. I'm ready to go through fire and water, and to ensure the best support for future Ghost Shadow Squad members. Before taking on the role of Underworld Underlian Master, he must save up enough money. So, he planned to cash in using his pre-rebirth memories. With that goal, he arrived at a small town near Wui Mountain. He once heard from a seasoned traveler that an unforgettable tragedy would happen in this town today. To earn money, he decided to take advantage of the event. An hour later, on an open square, around 15 people had gathered. Then, a burly man shouted, I'm Liang Dang in charge of this mission. The reward is substantial, but the mission is quite dangerous. Anyone with bad intentions, don't blame me for being harsh. Liang Dang looked around coldly. He approached the man, sizing him up. Are you the one Zhu Guang mentioned? That's right. Then he asked about the man's skills. The man gave a slight smile, and said with a teasing tone, If I kill you, will that get your respect? Liang Dang's eyes flashed coldly. Kid, don't get too full of yourself. Watch it, or you'll lose your head. The man sensed his opponent's lethal intent, but he wasn't looking for trouble. Relax. I'm just here for the money. I'm not interested in anything else. Liang retorted angrily. I hope you keep your promise. A moment later, a carriage came to a slow stop. A mother and son got off from it. She was a graceful woman with a boy around 7 or 8. They are the ones we need to protect in this mission. We need to get them safely to Nanping. In a past life, this mother and son died on this mission. But this time he wants to save them. The boy was curiously watching the man. The man smiled and gave him a wave. The boy shyly lowered his head. He's clearly a cheerful and kind-hearted kid. The beautiful woman gave the man a slight nod. Her face showed anxiety and unease. As the carriage slowly started moving, the group kept the carriage surrounded. They raced southward in a grand procession. They only stopped to rest at nightfall. The pay for this task is double the standard rate. As the leader, Liang Dang naturally gets more. This made him especially nervous, fearing mistakes. He seemed extra nervous, afraid of making a mistake. He called out as he handed jerky to everyone. No one knows when the next meal will be. Make sure to eat enough, everyone. Everyone sat down and began their simple meal. The woman and child have special food. Watching their contented expression, the man recalled the ominous legends about Hu Jin. They were killed by an attack from foreign invaders. In the end, their bodies weren't ever found. Nobody knows when they were attacked. As he stood there puzzled, he suddenly heard a loud thud. A huge man collapsed, blood pouring from his mouth. Before anyone could move, their faces turned dark, and one by one, they dropped. Seeing this, he knew they had been poisoned. Just as he was about to examine closely, Liang Dang came out unscathed. He had poisoned the food. Seeing the man unharmed, Liang Dang's eyes were on guard. Pointing at the man, he questioned sternly, How are you still okay? Because I didn't eat your jerky. In fact, the man didn't expect the leader was behind the poisoning. His rebirth changed a lot. Yet some things can't be changed. Like the cook who poisoned the meal, he was destined to die that day. Their fates were also set in stone. But some killings he had to stop. He turned to Liang Dang and shook his head. How pathetic. killing a companion for money. Aren't you scared those vengeful spirits will come after you? Liang Dang remained indifferent. Money can solve anything. You shameless fool. You better worry about yourself. The man realized while Yang Dang was so bold, he must have had some backup. Right then, four figures began to approach. Three had their faces covered. The leader was the only one not wearing a mask. From their eyes and movements, they were undoubtedly top-tier experts. When the newcomers arrived, Liang Dang gave them a respectful bow. The leader ignored Liang Dang. His gaze settled on the carriage. Get out here now, or I'll torch the carriage. At the sound, a beautiful woman, trembling, laid her child off the carriage. The leader spoke with a cold tone. Finding you is quite a lot of work. I didn't expect to find you hiding here. The beautiful woman was teary-eyed. Warlord, I plead for old time's sake. Please, spare my child. The warlord hesitated briefly. Fine. For old time's sake. I might let your child go. A hint of relief showed on her face. But then Quan Wu Ren switched his tone. I knew you'd pull this. You wretch. Do you still see yourself as in charge? What makes you think you can negotiate with me? He mercilessly mocked her maternal instincts. His eyes brimming with mockery. The child cowered into his mother's embrace. The beautiful woman's face went pale, but she held back her anger and pleaded. Just let my child go. I'll pay you 10 times more. The guard still looked unimpressed. We've already caught your father. What do you have to offer us? Hearing her father was caught, the color rained from her face. Just then, the guard's eyes suddenly locked onto the man. The man smiled and waved at the child. He tried to reassure him it was okay. Seeing the man, the guard angrily asked the Yang Dang who he was. All eyes turned to the man. The woman's eyes were filled with hope. The man slowly approached the mother and child. He stepped in front to shield them. I'm the bodyguard escorting them safely. Liang Dang nervously explained. He's just one who got away. I'll take him out now. With that, Liang Dang drew his sword and advanced. He was sure he could easily handle the man. What he didn't realize was, the man's youthful looks misled him greatly. The man stayed calm. He mocked Rian. They're just a pack of traitorous scum. You don't actually believe you'll get the money, do you? For all you know, they might kill you too. And keep all the money. Swayed by the man's manipulation, Liang Dang came to an abrupt halt. Quan Wu's expression shifted dramatically. Just a foolish kid. Has the nerve to call me a traitor and scoundrel. The man smirked coldly. Already panicking? I guess I nailed it. Quan's face turned betrayed. He shouted furiously at his men. Take that damn kid out first. 3 masked men sprang into action. Weapons drawn, they moved toward the man. The man grinned at Liang Dang. Catch that? He wants me dead first. Then it's your turn. Panic flickered across Liang Dang's face. But just as he started to step back, he heard a whoosh. A hidden weapon arced through the air. It hit the back of Yang Dang's head squarely. While Yang Dang fell to the ground, his face showing bitter defeat. He died on the spot. Quan W. Ren sneered at Liang Dang's corpse. What a fool. I should never have left this to you idiots. The man stared blankly. This is what happens to traitors. He turned a cold gaze to Quan W. Ren. You're next.